Please don't cry. Everything is going to be alright.
Celia Brennan had 6 months to live when she witnessed the murder. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Terminal. Inoperable. The doctors in Boston had given her the timeline with clinical detachment, and she'd made her peace with it. She'd come to Seoul with a simple plan. Work as a nanny for 6 months, earn enough money to cover her mother's dialysis treatments, and die quietly. That plan lasted exactly 2 weeks. 2 weeks before she took the wrong shortcut through the warehouse district and saw Kang Minho, one of Seoul's most dangerous men, put a bullet in a human trafficker's head. 2 weeks before he forced her into his black SUV and gave her an ultimatum that wasn't really an ultimatum at all. Work for him or disappear. 2 weeks before she met Jiho, a 5-year-old boy so traumatized he hadn't spoken in 18 months. Now Celia stood in a mansion that felt more like a prison, caring for a child who desperately needed her, working for a man who would kill her the moment he discovered she was dying, and trying to hide the fact that her body was shutting down. Because here's the thing about terminal cancer that nobody tells you. It doesn't wait for convenient timing. The pain was getting worse. The medications were barely working, and she had maybe 4 months left, maybe 3. But Kang Minho didn't know that. And the moment he found out she was dying, he'd throw her out, because dying people are liabilities, and men like him don't keep liabilities around. So Celia did what she'd been doing since the diagnosis. She lied. She hid the pills. She covered the bruises. She smiled through the agony. And she tried not to fall in love with the broken little boy who'd started calling her Mama Cece. Or his father, who looked at her like she was the first good thing that had happened to him in years. This is the story of how a dying woman taught a monster to be human, and how love bloomed in the shadow of death. 3 days earlier, Celia had been a completely different person. Well, not completely. She'd still been dying. But she'd been free while she was dying, which felt like it should count for something. The pediatric ward at Seoul Grace Hospital smelled like antiseptic and the lies adults tell children about pain. Celia had been volunteering there for 2 weeks, reading English storybooks to kids whose parents paid extra for bilingual care. It was supposed to be temporary, just until the nanny agency found her a full-time placement that paid enough to matter. Because here's what nobody tells you about dying young. It's expensive. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, the doctor in Boston had said, his face carefully neutral like he'd practiced this speech in a mirror. 6 to 9 months. Maybe 12 if she was lucky and willing to destroy her mother's finances with experimental treatments that probably wouldn't work anyway. Celia had chosen differently. She'd researched, calculated, and made a plan that felt insane but was actually the only thing that made sense. Go to Seoul, where wealthy families paid American nannies obscene amounts of money for the privilege of raising bilingual children. Work for 6 months. Die quietly. Leave her mother with enough money to cover the dialysis she needed to survive. Simple. Tragic. Practical. The cancer had other ideas about the timeline, but Celia was exceptionally good at ignoring her body's screaming protests. Years of nursing had taught her exactly which painkillers to mix, which symptoms she could hide, and how to apply makeup so that Gaunt looked like fashionably thin. She'd gotten good at lying. To everyone, but especially to herself. The nanny agency called on a Tuesday. "We have a placement," the woman said, and something in her voice made Celia's stomach drop. "Very exclusive family. Very private. They're willing to pay 50,000 American dollars for a 6-month contract." 50,000. Exactly what she needed. Exactly what her mother needed. "What's the catch?" Celia had asked. "No catch. Just discretion. The father values his privacy." That should have been the first warning sign. The second warning sign was the address. Not in the family-friendly neighborhoods she'd researched, but in Gangnam, in a building that looked more like a fortress than an apartment complex. The third warning sign was the interview itself. No mother present. Just a man in his mid-30s who looked at her the way you'd look at a car you were thinking about buying. Calculating, distant, checking off boxes on an internal list. "You speak Korean?" Kang Minho had asked. "Enough to get by." Celia had lied. She spoke almost none. "You understand that my son requires special attention. He doesn't speak. Trauma. The details are not your concern." "I'm a trained pediatric nurse," Celia said. "I've worked with traumatized children before." That was true. That part, at least, was true. Minho had studied her for a long moment. "Then, you'll live in the estate. No days off for the first month. No phone calls unless monitored. No visitors. No contact with your previous life. Every single word should have sent her running. But $50,000 bought a lot of silence. When do I start? Celia had asked. Tomorrow. So she'd packed her life into 2 suitcases, recorded a video message for her mother explaining that the assignment was remote, and she'd have limited contact, and moved into the most beautiful prison she'd ever seen. The Kang estate sprawled across 2 acres in the hills outside Seoul. Private gates, armed security, gardens that looked like they required a full-time staff. And inside, marble floors and artwork that probably cost more than most people's houses. Jiho's room was on the 3rd floor, and it broke her heart the moment she saw it. Every surface was soft, padded corners, cushioned floors, nothing sharp or hard that could be used for harm. The walls were covered in drawings. Hundreds of them, all by the same small hand. All of them violent. Men with guns. Blood. Fire. Stick figures with X's for eyes. He's had nightmares since he was 4, Minho said from the doorway, his voice flat. 3 therapists have tried. Nothing works. Celia picked up one of the drawings. A child, crying, standing over a body. What did he see? She asked quietly. That's not your concern. It is if I'm supposed to help him. Minho stepped into the room. Even with 5 feet between them, she could feel the danger rolling off him like heat. This was a man who hurt people. She knew it the same way she'd known which patients in the ER were going to get violent. Some kind of animal instinct that screamed predator. My son witnessed something he shouldn't have, Minho said, each word carefully chosen. I'm fixing it. You're here to keep him stable while I do. That's all. Celia met his eyes. I'm here to help a traumatized child, not to ask questions I don't want answered. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or respect. Good, he said. Then we understand each other. He left her alone with a child who drew nightmares and a suitcase full of pills she'd hidden under her clothes. That was day 1. Day 2. Jiho let her sit next to him while he drew. He didn't speak, didn't acknowledge her. Just drew and drew and drew, his small hands moving frantically across the paper like he was trying to get the violence out of his head and onto something he could control. Day 3 was when everything shattered. Celia had made a mistake. A stupid, careless mistake that would have been fine in a normal household, but was catastrophic here. She'd taken the shortcut through the warehouse district on her way back from picking up art supplies. And she'd seen him, Kang Minho, in an alley behind a shipping container, his suit jacket off and his sleeves rolled up, standing over a man who was begging in Russian. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone, the desperate pleading of someone who knew what was coming. The gun appeared in Minho's hand like it had always been there. The shot was quieter than she'd expected. Just a crack, and then the man slumped, and then there was blood, and Celia's entire world inverted. She'd run. God, she'd run like hell itself was chasing her. And then the SUV. And then Minho, calm as death, explaining that she'd just become a loose end. Now, 3 days later, she stood in Jiho's room at midnight, watching the boy sleep fitfully, and tried to calculate how long she could survive this. The cancer would kill her in 6 months. Maybe 4 if the stress accelerated it. Maybe 2 if she couldn't keep food down much longer. But Kang Minho would kill her tomorrow if he discovered she was dying. Because sick people were liabilities. Dying people told secrets. And the kind of man who committed murder in alleyways didn't keep liabilities around. So Celia made a decision that would cost her everything. She would hide the cancer, earn the money, protect this broken child as long as she could, and then disappear before anyone realized she was terminal. Simple, tragic, practical. The universe laughed at her plans. Because the next morning, Jiho looked at her for the first time. Really looked, his dark eyes meeting hers with something that almost resembled hope, and whispered a single word that would change everything. Cece. His first word in 18 months. And just like that, Celia Brennan realized she wasn't going to be able to walk away from this child. Not even to save her own life. Minho heard it from the hallway. She watched his face transform, the cold mask cracking, revealing something raw underneath. He took 3 steps into the room and dropped to his knees in front of his son. Jiho. His voice broke on the name. Did you just? The boy looked terrified. Like speaking had been an accident. Like he'd broken a rule. Celia knelt beside them. It's okay, sweetheart. You did so good. Can you say it again? Jiho's eyes filled with tears. He looked at his father, then at Celia, then back to his father. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. It's okay, Minho whispered, and Celia had never heard him sound like that. Gentle, almost broken. You don't have to. Cece, Jiho said again. Louder this time. Then he launched himself into her arms and started crying like his small body was trying to purge 18 months of silence all at once. Celia held him, rocking slightly, whispering reassurances that probably didn't make sense but felt necessary. Over the boy's shoulder, she met Miho's eyes. The way he looked at her in that moment, like she'd performed a miracle, like she'd given him back something he thought was lost forever, made her stomach knot with guilt. Because she was going to die. Soon. And this child was going to lose another mother. The problem with miracles is that they come with expectations. After Jiho spoke that first word, Minho looked at Celia like she was some kind of saint, like she descended from heaven specifically to fix his broken son. The household staff started treating her differently, no longer the disposable American nanny, but someone important, someone valued. It made her skin crawl, because Celia knew the truth. She wasn't a miracle worker. She was just a dying woman who understood trauma because she was currently living through her own. When you're staring down your own mortality at 28, you develop a certain clarity about what matters. You stop wasting time on bullshit. You speak plainly. You don't pretend things are okay when they're not. Jiho responded to that. To someone who didn't pity him or tiptoe around his silence. To someone who just saw him. The sessions became routine. Every morning at 9, Celia would sit with Jiho in his art room, and they'd draw together. She never pushed him to speak, never demanded progress, just sat beside him and created her own pictures, usually trees and birds, simple things that required no explanation. 1 week after that first word, Jiho drew something different. Not violence, not death. A stick figure woman with auburn hair, holding the hand of a small stick figure boy. Above them, a yellow circle sun. Below them, green grass. It was the most basic kindergarten drawing imaginable. It was the most beautiful thing Celia had ever seen. Is that us? She asked softly. Jiho nodded. Then, carefully, he picked up a crayon and wrote 2 words at the bottom of the page in shaky English letters. Mama Cece. The room temperature dropped 10 degrees. Celia's throat closed. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Because this child, this traumatized, beautiful child, had just given her a title she would never get to keep. Jiho, she started, but her voice cracked. Sweetie, I'm not. Cece, he whispered. Then, more firmly, Mama Cece. He was looking at her with such hope, such pure, uncomplicated need. Like she was the answer to every prayer he'd been too scared to speak out loud. Celia pulled him into her arms and let him tuck his head under her chin. She stared at the drawing over his shoulder and felt something inside her chest collapse. I'm going to die, she thought. I'm going to die and leave you alone, and you're going to think it's your fault all over again. The door opened. Minho stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. He was looking at the drawing. He's never. Minho's voice was rough. He's never drawn anything like that. Ever. He's healing, Celia said, keeping her voice steady through sheer force of will. Children need to feel safe before they can process trauma. He's starting to feel safe. Because of you. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. An acknowledgement that shifted the entire dynamic between them. Minho stepped into the room. For a man who killed people in alleyways, he moved with surprising gentleness as he knelt beside them. He reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and smoothed his hand over Jiho's hair. You like Cece? He asked in Korean, his tone softer than Celia had ever heard it. Jiho nodded against her chest. Good, Minho said. Then, switching to English, clearly intending for Celia to understand. Then she stays. The weight of those 3 words settled over Celia like a sentence. Because she stays meant she couldn't leave. Meant that the 6-month contract had just become indefinite. Meant that she was trapped here until her body gave out or Minho decided she was expendable. I need to talk to you, Minho said, standing. In my office. Now. It wasn't a request. Minho's office looked exactly like you'd expect a crime lord's office to look. Dark wood, leather furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul, and a desk that probably cost more than a car. On the wall behind his chair hung a piece of abstract art that Celia suspected was hiding a safe. Or a weapons cache. Both, probably. Minho poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey, but didn't offer her any. He stood by the window, backlit by the city lights. and studied her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. "My son called you mother," he said finally. "I didn't encourage that. I know. That's why it matters." He turned to face her fully. "Do you understand what you've done? 3 therapists couldn't reach him. $20,000 in treatment. Nothing. Then you show up, and within 2 weeks he's speaking. Trauma isn't linear," Celia said carefully. "Sometimes healing just needs the right moment. The right person. I might have just been the right timing." "You don't believe that." He was right. She didn't. Minho set down his glass and crossed to stand directly in front of her. Too close. Close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "I'm going to be honest with you, Miss Brennan. That night, when you witnessed what you witnessed, my plan was to kill you." Her heart stuttered. She'd suspected, but hearing it said out loud made it real. "But I didn't," Minho continued, "because something stopped me. Maybe instinct. Maybe stupidity. I decided instead to keep you here until I determined whether you were a threat." And Celia's voice came out steadier than she felt. "Have you determined that yet?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You're a threat. Just not the kind I anticipated. I don't understand. My son hasn't called anyone mother since his actual mother died giving birth to him. He has no memory of her. No attachment to the concept. Until you." Miho's eyes were black in the dim office light. "That makes you dangerous, Miss Brennan. Because now if you leave, if something happens to you, he'll break. And I cannot allow my son to break again." Celia's mouth went dry. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your contract just changed. You're not the nanny anymore. You're family. Which means you stay until I say otherwise. You get a salary increase, $80,000 for the year. Private quarters. Whatever you need. But you don't leave. That's not negotiable." The room spun slightly. Celia gripped the back of the chair in front of her, fighting down a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with the cancer eating through her pancreas. 80,000. God, that was enough to cover her mother's dialysis for 2 years. Maybe 3 if they were careful. But it required her to live long enough to earn it. "I need time to think," she said. "No." Miho's voice was final. "You need to understand your position. You witnessed a crime. You became essential to my son's well-being. There is no thinking about it. There is only accepting reality." He was right. They both knew it. Celia lifted her chin, channeling every ounce of nursing shift stubbornness she'd cultivated over the years. "Fine. 80,000. Private quarters. And one condition." Minho raised an eyebrow. "You're negotiating?" "One condition," she repeated. "My mother is sick. I send money home every month. That continues. No questions asked about where it goes or why. Done. And I want 1 day a month to go to the hospital for checkups." His eyes narrowed. "What hospital?" "I have a condition. Chronic. I need monitoring. Not a complete lie. Nothing contagious. Nothing that affects my ability to care for Jiho. But I need access to medical care." Minho studied her for a long moment. Celia kept her expression neutral, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. If he pushed, if he demanded to know what condition, if he called her doctor. "Fine," he said finally. "But my driver takes you. My doctor examines the results. No exceptions." "Shit. That's invasive. That's the price." Minho leaned against his desk, arms crossed. "You want to stay in my house, care for my son, and have access to my resources? Then I have access to your medical information. I don't keep liabilities around, Miss Brennan. I need to know you're not going to collapse in front of my child." "But I am going to collapse in front of your child," Celia thought wildly. That's exactly what's going to happen. She had 2 choices: refuse and lose everything, or agree and figure out how to forge medical records. "Fine," she heard herself say. "Your doctor can look at my records." She'd figure it out. She had to. Minho extended his hand. "Then we have an agreement." Celia shook it. His palm was warm, his grip firm. The handshake of a businessman, not a murderer. Except she'd seen him kill someone. She knew what those hands were capable of. "One more thing," Minho said, not releasing her hand. "You should know, the man I killed that night? His name was Viktor Volkov. He ran a trafficking ring that specialized in children. I'd been hunting him for 6 months. He's dead because he tried to move product through my territory, and I have a policy about anyone who hurts children." Celia's breath caught. Miho's eyes were absolutely serious. "I'm not a good man, Miss Brennan, but I have lines, and you happen to witness me enforcing one. So if you're going to live in fear of me, at least fear me for the right reasons." He released her hand, and gestured to the door. You can go. Jiho's probably wondering where you are. Celia walked to the door on shaking legs. As she reached for the handle, Minho spoke one last time. Miss Brennan? Thank you for helping my son. She didn't trust herself to speak. She just nodded and left. In her new private quarters, an entire suite with a bedroom, bathroom, and sitting room, Celia locked the door, walked directly to the bathroom, and vomited. The pain had been building all day. The stress of the conversation with Minho had pushed it over the edge. She knelt on the cold tile and emptied her stomach, then sat back against the wall, shaking. Her phone buzzed. A text from the agency. Confirmed contract update. Celia looked at the message, then at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Pale, gaunt, dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could fully hide. She looked like a woman who was dying. Because she was. She typed out her reply. Contract accepted. 80,000, 1 year, private quarters. Then she pulled up her medical records on her phone and started researching how to fake pancreatic health markers. Because Kang Minho had just trapped her in a gilded cage, and Celia Brennan was going to have to become very, very good at lying if she wanted to survive long enough to matter. What Celia didn't know, what she couldn't possibly know, was that Minho's doctor, Dr. Han, was one of the most thorough physicians in Seoul, and that in exactly 3 weeks, when Celia's blood panel came back, Dr. Han would walk into Minho's office with a file that would change everything. The file that said, Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Prognosis, 4 to 6 months. The file that would make Minho realize the woman saving his son was dying, and that there was absolutely nothing he could do to stop it. For 3 weeks, Celia lived in a beautiful lie. She woke at 7, took her pills with protein shakes she could barely keep down, and spent her mornings with Jiho. The boy was blooming. That was the only word for it. Each day brought new words, new drawings, new moments of trust that felt like gifts she didn't deserve. He started calling her Mama Cece regularly, started reaching for her hand when they walked through the gardens, started sleeping through the night without screaming. Minho watched it all with an expression that grew softer each day. He joined them for lunch, sitting at the large dining table in silence while Jiho chattered in a mix of Korean and English about birds and colors and the goldfish in the pond. Sometimes Celia would catch Minho looking at her instead of his son, his dark eyes unreadable. She told herself it meant nothing. But late at night, alone in her suite, she'd lie awake and feel the cancer spreading. That's not medically accurate. You can't actually feel tumors growing. But Celia swore she could sense it. The weight in her abdomen. The way food tasted wrong. The exhaustion that went bone deep. She was getting sicker, faster than the doctors had predicted. But she was also getting better at hiding it. The day everything changed started normally enough. Celia was in the art room with Jiho, working on a collaborative mural on a huge piece of paper taped to the wall. Jiho was painting flowers. Big, messy, enthusiastic flowers in every color imaginable. Celia was adding butterflies. Mama Cece? Jiho said, and her heart still caught every time he used that name. Why don't you live with us always? Her brush stilled. What do you mean, sweetheart? I do live here. But you're not family. He said it matter-of-factly, the way 5-year-olds state truths they don't understand are complicated. You don't have our last name. You don't eat breakfast with Appa. Appa. Father. Minho. I'm your nanny, Celia said gently. That's different from family. But I love you like family. The butterfly she'd been painting blurred. Celia blinked hard. I love you too, sweet boy. Then why? The door opened. Minho stood there, and something about his expression made Celia's stomach drop. Jiho, Minho said in Korean, his voice careful. Can you go with Sumi for a snack? I need to talk to Cece. Jiho looked between them, his artist's instinct sensing tension. But he nodded and followed the housekeeper out, glancing back once with worried eyes. The moment the door closed, Minho locked it. Sit down, he said. I'm fine standing. Sit. Down. The command in his voice, the mob boss command, not the father voice, made her knees weak. Celia sank into one of the small chairs, feeling ridiculous and terrified in equal measure. Minho pulled a folder from his jacket and tossed it onto the craft table between them. It landed with a sound that felt too loud in the quiet room. Open it, he said. Celia's hands trembled as she picked up the folder. Inside were medical records. Her medical records. The ones she'd stupidly thought she could fake. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Minho read, his voice flat. Diagnosed 4 months ago. Prognosis, 4 to 6 months. Patient declined aggressive treatment in favor of pain management. The room spun. Current status, he continued, shows accelerated progression. Dr. Han estimates 3 months. Maybe less. Celia couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. She'd been so careful. She'd forged the blood panel results herself. Had them sent from a fake lab in Boston. How? Did you really think I wouldn't verify? Miho's voice was cold now. Dangerous. I had my people contact Boston directly. Your real doctor was very forthcoming when I explained I was your employer and concerned for your well-being. HIPAA laws don't apply when you have the right leverage. He leaned forward, his face inches from hers. You lied to me. I never said I wasn't sick. You said chronic. Manageable. You made me believe you'd be here for my son long-term when you knew. His voice cracked. When you knew you were dying. Celia lifted her chin. I needed the money. For what? What's worth dying for in my house instead of with your family? My mother. The words came out fierce. My mother is on dialysis. She needs $20,000 a year minimum to survive. I have no insurance that covers her. No family except her. So yes, I lied. I lied so I could work for 6 months and leave her with enough money to live. Miho stared at her. That's it. That's your reason. That's everything. You could have told me. I would have. What? Celia stood up, anger flooding through her veins like medicine. You would have given me money out of kindness? You, the man who told me he was planning to kill me? You expect me to believe you would have just handed over $50,000 to a dying stranger? Miho stopped. Because she was right. 3 weeks ago, he would have thrown her out. Cut his losses. Found a healthier nanny who didn't come with an expiration date. But 3 weeks ago, his son hadn't called her mother. How long do you actually have? Miho asked quietly. Celia looked at the medical records in her shaking hands. Dr. Han is generous. 2 months. Maybe 10 weeks if I'm lucky. And you were going to stay the whole time? Just work until you collapsed? That was the plan. That's insane. That's survival. Celia met his eyes. You grew up with money, I'm guessing. With options. You don't understand what it's like to be so desperate that dying in a stranger's house seems like the smart choice. Miho's jaw worked. She watched him process, calculate, decide. Here's what's going to happen, he said finally. You're going to stay. What? You're going to stay? I'm going to pay for whatever treatment might extend your time. There is no treatment that. Then I'll pay for the best pain management in Asia. Private nurses. Whatever you need to be comfortable. Celia shook her head. Why? Why would you do that? Because my son loves you. Miho's voice was raw. Because for the first time in 18 months, he's happy. And I will not take that away from him until absolutely necessary. That's cruel. It'll be worse when I die. Maybe. But he'll have the memory of being loved by you. That's more than he had before. They stared at each other across the craft table, 2 people trapped in an impossible situation neither of them had chosen. I can't accept that, Celia said. You don't have a choice. Miho softened slightly. Look, I know you came here to earn money for your mother. Fine. I'll double it. 80,000 now, another 80 when the contract ends. Your mother will be taken care of for years. You can stop surviving and start living. Living. Celia laughed, and it came out bitter. I'm dying. Then die here, Miho said fiercely. Die with my son calling you mama. Die knowing you mattered. Die knowing you saved someone, even if you couldn't save yourself. Celia felt tears spilled down her cheeks. She hadn't cried since the diagnosis. She'd decided that crying was a luxury for people who had time to be sad. But now, faced with this bizarre act of kindness from a murderer, she couldn't hold it back. He'll hate you when I die, she whispered. He'll blame you for not saving me. Maybe, but that's my problem, not yours. Miho reached across the table and did something Celia never expected. He took her hand. His palm was warm. His grip was gentle. Let me give you this, he said quietly. Let me give my son this. Whatever time you have left, spend it here. Be his mother. Let yourself matter to someone before you go. Celia looked at their joined hands. At this dangerous man making an impossible offer. She should say no. Should protect Jiho from the heartbreak that was coming. But God, she was so tired of being strong. So tired of pretending she didn't want this. Want to matter, want to be loved, want to spend her last months as someone's mother instead of dying alone in a hospital bed. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Miho squeezed her hand once, then let go and stood. I'll have Dr. Han draw up a treatment plan for comfort care. You focus on Jiho. He walked to the door, unlocked it, then paused. Miss Brennan, for what it's worth, I'm sorry that you're going through this. That life dealt you this hand. Life doesn't apologize, Celia said. And neither should you. He left. Celia sat alone in the art room, surrounded by Jiho's paintings of sunshine and flowers, and wondered if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the cruelest. That night, at dinner, Minho made an announcement. Jiho, he said in Korean, then switched to English so Celia could understand. Cece is going to stay with us. Not just for a little while. For a long time. Jiho's face lit up. Forever. Minho's expression flickered. For as long as she can. The boy didn't understand the qualifier. He just launched himself at Celia, wrapping his small arms around her neck and saying, "Thank you. Appa. Thank you, thank you, thank you." Over and over in a mix of Korean and English. Over his shoulder, Celia met Minho's eyes. How do we tell him? Hers asked. We don't, his answered. Not yet. Let him be happy while he can be. So they did. And for one perfect month, Celia Brennan got to play mother to a healing child in a beautiful house and pretend that death wasn't counting down the days behind her. But death doesn't forget. And neither did the man who'd been watching the Kang estate for weeks. Viktor Volkov's brother, Anton, had been very patient. He'd learned about the witness, about the American nanny who'd seen the execution, about how she'd become precious to Kang Minho. Precious things could be broken, and broken men made mistakes. Anton smiled as he loaded his gun and made plans to destroy everything Minho loved, starting with the dying woman who'd somehow become the most important person in his enemy's world. Living in close proximity to someone while you're both pretending everything is fine creates a strange kind of intimacy. Celia started noticing things about Minho she hadn't before. How he took his coffee black with exactly 1 sugar cube. How he'd stand at Jiho's door every night for exactly 30 seconds, just watching his son sleep, before heading to his office. How his shoulders would tense when certain names were mentioned during business calls. Names Celia didn't recognize, but that clearly meant violence. And Minho, in turn, watched her. She'd catch him staring during meals, his expression unreadable. He started joining them more often, not just for lunch, but for afternoon walks in the garden, for Jiho's evening bath routine, for bedtime stories. He'd sit in the corner of Jiho's room, nominally working on his tablet, but Celia suspected he was actually just listening to her read The Velveteen Rabbit in her Boston accent while his son fought sleep. Dr. Han came weekly now. The appointments were brief but thorough, blood panels, pain management adjustments, vitamin infusions that bought her a few extra hours of energy. Minho attended every single one, asking questions Celia couldn't bring herself to ask. How much pain is she in? More than she admits. I've increased the prescription. Will there be warning? Before the end. Most likely. The decline tends to be gradual, then sudden. Define sudden. Days. Maybe hours. Minho's jaw had clenched so hard Celia thought she heard his teeth crack. After the appointment, he'd found her in the library where she was pretending to read. You need to tell me, he said without preamble. When it gets bad. When you can't hide it anymore. You need to tell me so I can prepare Jiho. I will. Promise me. I promise. He'd left, but not before she saw something in his eyes that looked dangerously close to grief. For her. For a woman he'd known less than 2 months. It should have felt absurd. Instead, it felt significant. The shift happened gradually, then all at once. It started with small things. Minho began sitting next to her at dinner instead of across from her. He'd pass her dishes without asking, somehow remembering that she could only tolerate bland foods now. He started asking her opinion on things that had nothing to do with Jiho, business decisions, art purchases, whether he should cut his hair. Why are you asking me? Celia had laughed. I know nothing about Korean real estate, but you have good instincts about people. Minho had been looking at a file on a potential business partner. You can read faces. I've watched you with Jiho, with the staff. You see things others miss. That's just nursing training. It's more than that. Their eyes met across the desk in his office. The air felt thick. Tell me about your life before, Minho said suddenly. Before the diagnosis. Who were you? Celia had frozen. Why? Because I realize I've trapped a dying woman in my house, and I know nothing about her except that she's saving my son. That seems wrong. So Celia told him. About growing up in Southie, Boston's working-class Irish neighborhood. About her father dying when she was 16, leaving her mother and her to survive on disability checks and sheer stubbornness. About putting herself through nursing school working 3 jobs. About the pediatric ward that became her home for 6 years, until the cancer made it impossible to work with patients who needed someone strong. I was good at it, she said quietly. Being a nurse. I could talk to scared kids, make them laugh when they were getting chemo. I'd tell them terrible jokes and sneak them extra ice cream and stay past my shift if they were crying. You still do that, Minho observed. With Jiho. He's easy to love. Is he the only one? Celia's breath caught. What? But Minho had already stood, closing his laptop with a decisive snap. It's late. You should rest. He'd left her sitting there, pulse racing, wondering what he'd almost said. The kiss happened 3 days later. Celia had been in the garden with Jiho, teaching him about butterflies. The boy was fascinated by the monarchs that migrated through in October, landing on the chrysanthemums like living jewels. They travel thousands of miles, Celia explained, crouching beside him. All the way from Canada to Mexico. Can you imagine? Something so small, so delicate, being that strong. Like you, Jiho said simply. Celia's throat closed. I'm not that strong, sweetie. Yes, you are. He said it with absolute certainty. Appa says you're the strongest person he knows. Your Appa said that? He tells Uncle Sangwoo. He says you're. Jiho scrunched his face, trying to remember the exact words. Fearless, even though you're scared. That's what strong means. Celia had to turn away, blinking hard. That's when she saw Minho standing on the terrace, watching them. His expression was soft, unguarded in a way she'd never seen. Jiho, he called. Sumi made your favorite cookies. Go. The boy ran inside with the singular focus of a child promised sugar. Minho descended the steps and crossed the garden to where Celia still knelt by the flowers. He offered his hand. She took it, letting him pull her to her feet. They stood too close. You heard that? Celia asked. Every word. I didn't tell him to. I know. Minho was still holding her hand. But he's right. You are the strongest person I know. I'm dying. That's not weakness. That's just terrible fucking luck. Celia laughed, surprised. She'd never heard him curse before. You're different now, she observed, than when I first met you. So are you. I'm not sure that's true. It is. Minho's thumb traced across her knuckles. When you first came here, you were already dead. Just walking around, waiting for your body to catch up. Now you're alive. I can see it. Jiho can see it. You're here. That's your fault. Good. The word hung between them, loaded with meaning neither of them were brave enough to name. Minho, Celia started. He kissed her. Not aggressively. Not passionately. Just gently. A soft press of lips that tasted like a question. Celia's first instinct was to pull away, to protect them both from the inevitable heartbreak. But God, she was so tired of protecting people. She kissed him back. When they broke apart, Minho rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, he whispered. The worst. You're going to die. Probably soon. I'm going to watch you die, and there's nothing I can do to stop it. I know. And I'm kissing you anyway. I know. Minho pulled back enough to meet her eyes. I haven't felt anything in years. Since Jiho's mother died, I decided feeling things was a liability. A weakness. Then you showed up, and he stopped. Started again. You make me want to be better. Human instead of monster. And I know I don't have the right to ask this, but... Yes, Celia interrupted. You don't know what I'm asking. Yes, anyway. A smile ghosted across his lips. Real. Warm. Devastating. Then let me love you, Minho said. For however long we have. Let me be selfish one last time. Celia cupped his face, feeling the stubble rough against her palm. This dangerous man. This killer who'd somehow become careful with her. Who'd given her back her life just in time to lose it. Okay, she whispered. Love me. While you can. So he did. The next few weeks existed in a golden bubble that Celia knew was temporary, but couldn't help cherishing. Minho moved her into his wing of the house. Not into his bedroom. Not yet. But into the suite next door with the connecting door left open. He'd appear in the mornings with coffee, sitting on the edge of her bed to check that she'd taken her medications. He started canceling business meetings to have lunch with her and Jiho. He'd hold her hand under the dinner table where his son couldn't see, his thumb tracing patterns on her wrist. They didn't sleep together. Celia's body was failing too fast for that. But they'd lie together on his couch at night, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her waist, and talk about everything and nothing. "Tell me about your first love," Celia said one night. "You're looking at her," Minho replied. "That's not true." "It is." He shifted so he could see her face. Jiho's mother, Yuna, was arranged. A good match for family alliances. I respected her. I was grateful when she gave me a son, but I never loved her. I don't think she loved me either. That's sad. That's practical. Love is a luxury in my world. But you're loving me. You're different. Miho's hand came up to tuck her hair behind her ear. You're the first person who's ever looked at me and seen something worth saving. I'm not trying to save you. I know. That's why it's working. Celia traced the line of his jaw. What happens after? When I'm gone? Don't. Minho, we have to talk about it. His arms tightened around her. Then I'll survive. For Jiho, I'll get up every morning and be his father and pretend I'm not dying inside. And eventually, maybe, I'll remember how to breathe without it hurting. You'll find someone else. No. You should. No. Miho's voice was final. You don't get to tell me what to do after you're gone. You get to be here now. With me. That's all. So they stopped talking about it. They focused on the now. On Jiho's laughter. On quiet mornings. On the way the light hit the garden at sunset. On the feeling of fingers intertwined under a blanket during movies. On being alive while they still could. But reality doesn't forget. And neither did Anton Volkov. He'd been watching. Waiting. Building his case. The American nanny was dying. Excellent. That meant she was weak. Vulnerable. Easy to take. And when he took her, Kang Minho would crumble. Anton smiled as he loaded his weapon and called his team. Tomorrow, he said in Russian. We move tomorrow. Tomorrow was Jiho's 6th birthday. The day everything would shatter. Jiho's birthday dawned clear and perfect. Celia woke early, despite the exhaustion that now lived in her bones, because she'd promised herself that today would be perfect. She'd planned every detail with Sumi's help. A small party, just family and a few of Jiho's new friends from the private school he'd started attending. A magician. A dinosaur cake because Jiho had recently discovered pterodactyls. Presents wrapped in paper he'd helped choose at the store. Normal. She wanted to give him normal. But when she tried to get out of bed, her legs wouldn't cooperate. The room spun violently. She gripped the bedside table, breathing through the nausea, willing her body to obey. The connecting door opened. Minho appeared, already dressed for the day, coffee in hand. He took one look at her and set the cup down. How bad? He asked, crossing the room in 3 strides. I'm fine. How bad? Celia's carefully constructed lie crumbled. 7 out of 10. Maybe 8. It's just, I haven't eaten yet. Low blood sugar. Minho's jaw tightened. He disappeared into the bathroom and returned with her medications and a glass of water. Then he sat beside her on the bed, opened each pill bottle, and handed her the tablets one by one, waiting for her to swallow before giving her the next. It was such a caretaker gesture, so at odds with everything else about him. I need to be okay today, Celia said when the last pill went down. Jiho's been so excited. I can't. I'll carry you if I have to. Minho, I'll carry you, he repeated firmly. To the bathroom. To the party. Wherever you need to go. You're not missing his birthday. Tears pricked her eyes. Stupid tears that came too easily now. Thank you. He kissed her forehead, his lips lingering. Eat something. I'll tell Jiho you're still getting ready. An hour later, fortified by painkillers and sheer stubbornness, Celia made it downstairs. Jiho's shriek of delight when he saw her made every agonizing step worth it. Mama Cece. Look at the decorations. The living room had been transformed. Streamers in blue and green. Balloons shaped like dinosaurs. A banner that read, Happy 6th Birthday Jiho, in English and Korean. It's perfect, Celia said, pulling him into a hug that she wished she could hold forever. Appa helped. Jiho whispered conspiratorially. He let me put up the crooked ones. Celia glanced at Minho, who was standing by the windows looking uncomfortable in a party hat Jiho had apparently insisted he wear. Their eyes met. His expression said this is ridiculous, but he made no move to take the hat off. Her heart did something complicated in her chest. I love you, she thought. God help me. I love you. The party was chaos. Beautiful, ordinary, wonderful chaos. 6-year-olds running through the house. The magician pulling a rabbit from his hat. Jiho's screech of delight. Cake smashed on faces. Presents torn open with the ferocity of tiny barbarians. Celia sat in a comfortable chair that Minho had pointedly positioned for her, watching the scene unfold with a photographer's eye, memorizing every moment. Jiho's laugh. The way he'd look back at her every few minutes to make sure she was still there. The way Minho would catch her eye across the room and mouth, "Doing okay?" She was doing okay. For now. When the party wound down and the last child was picked up, Jiho collapsed on the couch between Minho and Celia, exhausted and happy. "Best birthday ever," he announced in English, then switched to Korean to tell his father the same thing. "We have one more surprise," Minho said. Jiho perked up. "More?" Minho pulled an envelope from his jacket. "From me and Mama Cece." The title made Celia's breath catch. This was the first time Minho had used it directly. Acknowledging what they all knew but hadn't said, she was Jiho's mother now. Maybe not legally, maybe not biologically, but in every way that mattered. Jiho opened the envelope. Inside were 3 tickets. "What is it?" he asked, squinting at the Korean text. "Tickets to the aquarium," Minho explained. "In Busan. Tomorrow. Just the 3 of us." The aquarium. Jiho launched himself at his father, then at Celia, then back to his father. "With the whale sharks?" "The ones I saw on TV. With the whale sharks," Minho confirmed. Celia met Minho's eyes over their son's head. "Can I make it to Busan?" hers asked. "You'll make it," his answered. "I'll make sure of it." Jiho fell asleep between them an hour later, his head on Celia's lap and his feet in Minho's. Neither adult moved. They just sat there in the dimming evening light, listening to the boy breathe and pretending this moment could last forever. "He's going to hate me," Celia whispered. "When I die, he's going to hate me for leaving him." "No." Minho's voice was certain. "He's going to remember that you loved him. That's what children remember. Not the leaving, the loving." "How do you know?" "I don't. But I need to believe it." Celia reached across Jiho's sleeping form and found Minho's hand. They sat like that, connected over their son, holding on to each other in the illusion of forever, until the room was fully dark. Busan was 3 hours by car. Celia slept most of the way, her head resting against the window, Minho's jacket draped over her shoulders. When she woke, Jiho was softly singing to himself in the back seat, and the ocean was visible in the distance, vast and blue and impossibly beautiful. "We're almost there," Minho said quietly. The aquarium was everything Jiho had dreamed. He pressed his face against the glass of every tank, asking rapid-fire questions that Celia and Minho took turns answering. When they reached the main tank, the one with whale sharks gliding through artificial ocean, Jiho went completely still. "They're so big," he breathed. "They're the biggest fish in the world," Celia said, kneeling beside him despite the pain. "But they're gentle. They only eat tiny little things. Plankton. Like me." Celia blinked. "What? I'm little, but I can still be strong. Like the fish." Over his head, Celia met Minho's eyes. The man looked absolutely wrecked. "Yes," Minho said hoarsely. "Exactly like the fish." They watched the whale sharks for an hour. Jiho never got bored. He'd point out each time one circled back, keeping track like they were old friends. When they finally left, heading to a beachside restaurant for lunch, Jiho held both their hands. "This is my best day ever," he announced. "Better than my birthday even." "Why?" Celia asked. "Because we're all together. Like a real family." Celia stopped walking. The beach stretched out beside them, golden sand meeting green water. Families played at the shoreline. Couples walked hand in hand. Somewhere, a child was laughing. "We are a real family," she said. Jiho looked up at her. "Really? Really? Forever?" The word broke her. She knelt in the sand, not caring that her nice pants would get ruined, and cupped his face in her hands. "Listen to me," she said. "Family isn't about how long you're together. It's about how much you love each other while you can. And I love you more than anything in the whole world. Do you understand?" Jiho nodded. "I love you too, Mama Cece." Then he hugged her, fierce and tight, and Celia closed her eyes and memorized the weight of him. The smell of his hair, the feel of his small arms around her neck. When she opened her eyes, Minho was watching them with an expression that looked like grief and love mixed together. He knew. They all knew. This was temporary. This beautiful, perfect day was temporary. But God, it was worth it. They drove home at sunset, Jiho asleep in the back again. Minho reached over and took Celia's hand. Thank you, he said. For what? For giving him today. For giving us today. You paid for it. That's not what I mean. Miho's thumb traced circles on her palm. You gave us the gift of normalcy. Of feeling like a family. That's worth more than money. Celia leaned her head on his shoulder. I need to tell you something. What? Dr. Han called yesterday. New scans came back. Miho's hand tightened painfully on hers. And it's accelerated. The cancer's spread to my liver. He's estimating 6 weeks. Maybe 8. The car didn't swerve. Miho's face didn't change. But Celia felt the way his entire body went rigid. 6 weeks, he repeated flatly. Yeah, that's not long enough. It never was. Miho pulled the car off onto a scenic overlook and put it in park. Then he turned to her. I need you to know something, he said. These last 2 months with you, they've been the best of my life. Better than anything I thought I deserved. You made me remember what it's like to feel human. And when you're gone, his voice cracked. When you're gone, I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure Jiho knows how much you loved him. Celia's vision blurred. Miho, let me finish. He took both her hands in his. I know we don't have time. I know this is ending. But I need you to know that I love you. Completely. Impossibly. In a way that's probably insane given the circumstances. But I do. I love you, Celia Brennan. She was crying now. Full on, ugly crying. I love you too, she whispered. So much. Miho kissed her then. Soft and desperate, and full of everything they couldn't say. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. 6 weeks, he said. 6 weeks. Then let's make them count. They didn't notice the car that had been following them, or the man inside it, taking photos with a telephoto lens. Anton Volkov smiled as he reviewed the shots. Kang Minho kissing the dying American woman. His weakness on full display. Perfect, he murmured. The attack would come in 3 days. Right when they were most vulnerable. Right when they thought they were safe. 3 days of perfect domesticity. That's all they got. Celia woke up at 3 a.m. on the 3rd night and knew immediately something was wrong. The pain had shifted. Instead of the familiar ache in her abdomen, there was a sharp, tearing sensation in her side. Liver. The cancer had metastasized aggressively, just like Dr. Han had warned. She made it to the bathroom before she vomited blood. Not a lot. Just enough to stain the white porcelain pink and send panic shooting through her system. Celia? Miho appeared in the doorway, hair mussed from sleep. He took one look at the sink and went pale. I'm fine, she started. Dr. Han. Now. It's 3 in the morning. I don't care. Miho was already pulling out his phone. He's on call. That's what I pay him for. 45 minutes later, Dr. Han arrived with a portable ultrasound machine and enough medical equipment to stock a small clinic. He set up in Celia's suite while Miho stood guard at the door like he could physically prevent death from entering. The ultrasound was quick. Dr. Han's face said everything before his mouth did. The tumors have expanded significantly, he said in English, because Celia had requested transparency from the beginning. Your liver is. Celia, I need to be honest with you. We're looking at days. Maybe 2 weeks. The room tilted. You said 6 weeks. Miho's voice was deadly quiet. 3 days ago, you said 6 weeks. Pancreatic cancer is unpredictable. Sometimes the progression accelerates exponentially in the final stages. I'm sorry. Sorry. Miho laughed, and it sounded like breaking glass. You're sorry. Miho. Celia reached for his hand. This isn't his fault. Then whose fault is it? God's. Fate's. Because someone needs to answer for this. Dr. Han packed his equipment quietly, clearly uncomfortable with the raw emotion in the room. I'm leaving pain medication. Strong doses. When it becomes unmanageable, call me. I'll come immediately. After he left, Celia and Miho sat in silence. 2 weeks, Miho finally said. Maybe less. How do I tell him? How do I tell my son that you're dying? We tell him together. Soon. How soon? Celia looked at her hands. At the bruises from IVs. At the way her wedding ring, the simple gold band Miho had given her in a private ceremony 2 weeks ago, because they'd both wanted to make it official even if they couldn't make it legal, hung loose on her finger now. Tomorrow, she said. We tell him tomorrow. Telling Jiho was the worst thing Celia had ever had to do. They sat in the garden, the 3 of them on a bench under the cherry blossom tree that had just started blooming. Jiho was between them, swinging his legs and talking about a drawing he wanted to make when Miho interrupted. Jiho, we need to talk to you about something important. The boy immediately went still. Children know. They always know when something bad is coming. What? He asked in a small voice. Celia took his hand. You know how sometimes people get sick? And doctors try to help them get better? Jiho nodded slowly. Well, I've been sick for a while now. Since before I met you, actually. And the doctors have been trying very hard. But my body isn't getting better. But you'll be okay, right? Like when I had a cold and you gave me medicine? Miho's arm came around both of them. No, son. Mama Cece has a sickness that medicine can't fix. Why not? Because sometimes, Celia said gently, our bodies just stop working the way they should. And when that happens, nothing can fix it. Not even the best doctors. Jiho's eyes were filling with tears. Are you going to die? Yes, Celia whispered. I am. Soon. The word no came out of Jiho like a wail. Not a scream. Not a shout. Just a long, broken no that tore at every parental instinct Celia had. She pulled him into her lap, holding him while he sobbed. It's not fair, he cried. You just got here. We just became a family. You can't leave. Please don't leave. Please, Mama Cece, please. I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Miho wrapped his arms around both of them, his face pressed into Celia's hair. She could feel him shaking. They sat like that for an hour, crying together, grieving what they were about to lose. When Jiho finally calmed enough to speak, his voice was hoarse. How long? Dr. Han thinks maybe 2 weeks. Maybe less. Can't we? Jiho hiccuped. Can't we do something? Appa has money. We can go to America. To the best hospital. We tried, son, Miho said quietly. We tried everything. Then it's my fault. Jiho's face crumpled again. If I hadn't needed you so much, if I'd been better, you wouldn't have had to work so hard. No. Celia gripped his shoulders, forcing him to look at her. Listen to me. This is not your fault. Do you understand? I was sick before I met you. Nothing you did caused this. Nothing. But nothing, she repeated fiercely. You gave me the best months of my life. You made me happy. You made me feel like I mattered. That's a gift, Jiho, not a burden. He clung to her, and Celia looked at Miho over their son's head. This is killing him, her eyes said. I know, his replied. But he needs to know. He needs to say goodbye. So they let him cry. Let him rage against the unfairness. Let him be 6 years old and terrified and angry at a universe that was taking away his mother. And Celia held him through all of it, memorizing the weight of him, knowing these might be the last moments she had strength to hold him this way. That night, after Jiho finally fell asleep, exhausted from crying, Miho found Celia on the terrace. She was staring at the Seoul skyline, wrapped in a blanket despite the mild evening. You should be resting, he said. I'll be resting forever soon enough. Miho flinched. Don't what? Acknowledge reality. Don't say it like it doesn't matter. Like you're not leaving us. Celia turned to face him. I'm terrified, she admitted. Not of dying. I've made peace with that. But of leaving you. Leaving Jiho. Of knowing he's going to hurt because of me. He'll survive, Miho said. Because I'll make sure he does. How? You're dying too. On the inside. Then I'll die on the inside. But on the outside, I'll be his father. I'll get up every day and feed him breakfast and help with homework and tell him stories about you. I'll make sure he knows every day that you loved him. Tears streamed down Celia's face. Promise me something. Anything. When I'm gone, don't let him remember me as the sick woman. Tell him stories about the good days. About Busan. About the garden. About how much fun we had. I promise. And Miho. She stepped closer, cupping his face. Let yourself be happy again someday. Don't stay frozen. Live. I can't promise that. Then promise you'll try. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips. I'll try. They stood together on the terrace, watching the city lights blink like stars, and pretended they had forever instead of days. But fate wasn't done with them yet. Because while they were grieving on the terrace, Anton Volkov was making final preparations. Tomorrow morning, his team would strike. They'd take the dying woman, take the child, and they'd destroy Kang Minho completely. The real tragedy? If they'd waited just one more week, Celia would have been dead anyway. But vengeance doesn't wait. And neither does Anton. The morning started normally. Too normally, in retrospect. Celia woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and Jiho already in her room, sitting cross-legged on the floor with his art supplies spread around him. He was drawing again, but not the violent images from before. These were memories. Pictures of the three of them at the aquarium. At dinner. In the garden. Making a book, he explained when she asked. So I don't forget. The words hit like a fist to the chest. That's beautiful, sweetheart, Celia managed. Minho appeared in the doorway with breakfast on a tray, plain rice, weak tea, things her stomach might tolerate. He'd become an expert at managing her symptoms, knowing when to push her to eat and when to let her rest, when to call Dr. Han and when to just hold her while she cried from pain. You look better today, he said, though they both knew it was a lie. Liar, she said fondly. Optimist, he corrected. Jiho looked between them. Are we doing something today? Minho and Celia exchanged glances. They'd planned to keep her close, to spend every remaining moment together. But Jiho needed normalcy, needed to feel like life was continuing even as it was ending. What would you like to do? Celia asked. The park. Can we go to the park? The one with the big playground. It was a 20-minute drive. Public. Open. The kind of place Minho usually avoided because of security concerns. But what were they saving her for? She was dying anyway. Yes, Minho said, making the decision. We'll go to the park. That decision would haunt him for the rest of his life. They took one car instead of the usual convoy, less conspicuous. Minho had reasoned. His head of security, Quan, had protested but ultimately agreed to follow at a distance. The park was beautiful. Cherry blossoms in full bloom, petals drifting like pink snow. Children everywhere, their laughter echoing off playground equipment. Normal families doing normal things. Celia sat on a bench with Minho while Jiho ran to the swings, waving at them every few seconds to make sure they were watching. He's going to be okay, Celia said quietly. You've raised a resilient child. We've raised a resilient child, Minho corrected. I was only there for 3 months. You were there for the most important 3 months. Celia leaned into him, savoring the warmth of his body, the steady rhythm of his breathing. She was so tired. The kind of tired that went beyond physical. Soul tired. Ready to let go tired. But not yet. Not while Jiho was laughing. Mama Cece. Watch this. She watched him do the exact same thing on the swing he'd done 3 times before, and she clapped like it was the most impressive feat she'd ever seen. That's when the van pulled up. It happened fast. Too fast for even Minho's trained instincts to fully process. For men. All armed. Moving with military precision. Minho saw them first. He was already moving, already shouting for Quan, already trying to position himself between the threat and his family. But they weren't after him. 2 men grabbed Jiho from the swings. His scream cut through the park like a knife. The other 2 moved for Celia. She tried to run. Instinct, even though her body was failing. But one of them caught her arm and twisted it behind her back. Pain exploded through her shoulder. Her vision went white. Celia. Minho's roar was pure animal rage. She heard gunshots. Screaming. The sound of Jiho crying, Appa, Mama Cece, in pure terror. Then something hard hit the back of her head. Everything went black. When Celia woke, she was in a warehouse. Concrete floor. Metal walls. The smell of rust and old blood. Her hands were zip-tied behind her back, the plastic cutting into her wrists. Every breath sent agony through her torso. They'd been rough getting her here, and her fragile body couldn't take much more abuse. Jiho was 10 feet away, also restrained, sobbing quietly. Sweetheart. Celia's voice came out hoarse. Jiho, baby, look at me. The boy's tear-stained face turned toward her. Mama Cece? I'm here. I'm right here. Are you hurt? He shook his head. Good. That's good. I need you to be brave, okay? Can you be brave for me? I'm scared. I know. Me too. But your Appa is going to find us. I promise. A door opened. Footsteps echoed on concrete. The man who entered looked like an older, crueler version of the man Minho had killed in that alley. Same sharp features. Same cold eyes. He studied Celia with clinical interest. You're dying, he said in accented English. I can see it. Months at most. Weeks, Celia corrected, because if she was going to die here, she wasn't going to lie about it. What do you want? What I want is to watch Kang Minho suffer. Anton Volkov crouched in front of her. My brother, the man he killed, was my twin, my other half. And now I will take his other halves, his son, his dying wife, and I will make him choose which one he saves. Celia's blood went cold. You can't. Oh, I can. I already contacted him. Told him he has 2 hours. He can have the location for either you or his son. Not both. He chooses. He'll choose Jiho. Yes, that's what makes this perfect. Anton smiled. You'll die here, alone and in pain, knowing you weren't chosen. And the boy will live knowing his father chose him over you. That guilt will destroy their relationship. Either way, I win. You're a monster. So is he. The difference is, I'm honest about it. Anton stood and left the room. The door slammed shut. Celia looked at Jiho. The boy was shaking. He's lying, Celia said firmly. Your apple will save both of us. Do you hear me? Both of us. But even as she said it, she was doing the math. Her body was failing. She had days left anyway. If Minho had to choose, he should choose Jiho. He would choose Jiho. And that was okay. That was right. She just needed to keep the boy calm until rescue came. Jiho, can you sing me a song? The one we learned last week. His voice trembling, Jiho started singing a Korean lullaby she'd taught him. Off-key and broken by tears, but still singing. And Celia closed her eyes and prayed to a god she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. Just save him. I don't matter. Just save my son. Minho received the call 17 minutes after the kidnapping. He was standing in the park, covered in blood that wasn't his. 2 of Anton's men were dead. The other 2 had escaped when his phone rang. Kang Minho. Anton's voice was smooth. I have something that belongs to you. If you hurt them, they're alive. For now. But you have a choice to make. Anton laid out the terms. 2 hours. 2 locations. Choose one. The phone went dead. Minho stood absolutely still for 5 seconds. Then he started moving. Quan. His voice cut through the chaos of police and witnesses. Get Lee Sang-woo, get Min Jae, get everyone we have. Full mobilization. Now. Boss, what are you? We're getting them both. He said you have to choose. Then I choose both. Minho's eyes were black with rage. I don't negotiate with dead men. And that's what he is. Dead. He just doesn't know it yet. 23 minutes later, Minho's entire organization was activated. 30 men. Every weapon they had. Surveillance equipment. Thermal cameras. Everything. He'll give us the locations at the last minute. Minho said, staring at a map of Seoul. 2 places far apart to prevent us from hitting both. We split into 2 teams. Team Alpha goes for Celia. Team Bravo takes Jiho. We move simultaneously. And if we have to choose? Sang-woo asked quietly. Minho turned to him. We don't choose. We save both. Or we die trying. The call came with 15 minutes left on the clock. 2 locations. Just as predicted. 40 minutes apart. Impossible to save both. Except Minho had planned for impossible. Alpha Team, you have Celia's location, Northwest Warehouse District. Bravo Team, Jiho is at the docks. Move now. I'm going with Alpha. Boss, Quan protested. You should coordinate from. I'm going for my wife. The word came out savage. You have your orders. Move. The vehicle screamed through Seoul, sirens blaring, police mysteriously not interfering. Minho had called in every favor he had. His phone buzzed. Dr. Han. Not now. She doesn't have much time, the doctor said urgently. Based on her deterioration this morning, I don't think she can handle significant trauma. If she's injured, if there's stress. I understand. Minho, I don't think you do. Her body is shutting down. Any additional shock could. Then I better get there fast. He hung up. The warehouse was defended by 6 men. All armed. All expecting him. Minho didn't care. He went through them like a force of nature. No hesitation. No mercy. The first 2 dropped before they even saw him coming. The third managed to fire 1 shot that went wide. The 4th reached for his radio. None of them lived long enough to matter. Minho kicked open the door to the main warehouse space. Celia was slumped against the far wall, pale as death. Alone. Where's my son? He roared at her. Other location. He separated us. Celia's voice was barely audible. Jiho's at the docks. You have to go. Bravo Team has him. I'm here for you. No. She tried to shake her head, but the movement made her gasp in pain. You have to save Jiho. I'm dying anyway. Shut up. Minho crossed the space and carefully cut the zip ties from her wrists. I'm saving both of you. Minho. I said shut up. I love you. You're my wife. I'm taking you home. He lifted her as gently as he could, but Celia still cried out. He could feel how light she was. How fragile. Like she was made of paper and would crumble in his arms. His phone buzzed. Quan. We have Jiho. Repeat. We have the boy. He's safe. Minho's knees nearly buckled. Injuries. Scared but unharmed. Anton Volkov is dead. He was at the docks. Min Jae put 3 rounds in him. Good. Miho looked down at Celia. Did you hear that? Jiho's safe. Tears streamed down her face. Thank God. Thank God. Then her body went limp in his arms. Celia? Celia. Dr. Han met them at the private hospital that Miho owned through shell companies. The diagnosis was instant and brutal. Her body was shutting down. The trauma of the kidnapping had accelerated everything. Hours, maybe days if they kept her comfortable, but not weeks, not even close to weeks. I want to see Jiho, Celia whispered from the hospital bed. He's on his way. Before I die. I need to see him before I die. You're not dying. Not yet. Miho. She reached for his hand. Don't lie to me. Not now. So he didn't. You're dying, he said hoarsely. Soon. And there's nothing I can do except make sure you're not in pain. Then bring me our son. Jiho burst into the hospital room like a small hurricane. Mama Sisi. He tried to climb onto the bed, but Miho caught him gently. Careful. She's hurt. Jiho froze, taking in the 4 lines, the monitors, the way Celia looked even smaller than usual in the white hospital bed. Are you okay? His voice trembled. Come here, baby. Celia patted the bed beside her. I'm okay. I'm just tired. Jiho climbed up carefully and curled into her side. Celia wrapped her arm around him, breathing in the smell of his hair. I was so scared, he whispered. I know. Me too. But we're safe now. Because Appa saved us. Yes, your Appa saved us both. Jiho looked at his father. You didn't choose. That bad man said you had to choose, but you saved both of us. Miho's throat worked. I'll always save you both. Always. The boy seemed satisfied with this answer. He snuggled closer to Celia, his small hand finding hers. They sat like that for hours. The 3 of them, saying nothing and everything, until Jiho fell asleep between them, exhausted from trauma and relief. Dr. Han appeared in the doorway, his expression grave. We need to talk, he said quietly. Miho carefully extracted himself without waking Jiho and followed the doctor into the hallway. How long, he asked. Based on her vitals, a day? Maybe 2. The kidnapping accelerated everything. Her liver is failing. Her kidneys are starting to fail. We're managing her pain, but she's dying. Yes. Miho leaned against the wall. Can you marry us? Legally this time. The first ceremony wasn't official. I want her to be my wife. On paper. Before she goes. Dr. Han's eyes softened. I'll make it happen. Tonight. At midnight. In a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and dying, Kang Minho married Celia Brennan. No guests except Dr. Han as witness and Jiho, who'd woken and refused to leave. No flowers. No music. Just 2 people holding hands and promising to love each other for as long as I breathe. Because Celia had insisted on that wording instead of, till death do us part. I can't promise till death, she'd said, her voice barely audible. Death is tomorrow, but I can promise for as long as I'm breathing. So that's what they said. When the paperwork was signed and Dr. Han left them alone, Celia looked at her husband. I need you to do something for me, she said. Anything. Take Jiho home. Let him sleep in his own bed. Come back in the morning. I'm not leaving you. Miho. She squeezed his hand with what little strength she had. He needs to remember his home as a safe place. Not a place where his mother died. Please. Give him tonight. Miho looked torn. What if? If I die before you get back, then I die. But I don't think I will. I think I have one more day. One more morning. And I want him to wake up in his own bed and come see me and feel like things are okay. Things aren't okay. I know. But let's pretend for him. So Miho did. He carried sleeping Jiho to the car and drove them home. Put his son to bed. Stood in the doorway watching him sleep and memorizing every detail because tomorrow, after tomorrow, nothing would ever be the same. Then he drove back to the hospital and curled up in the chair beside Celia's bed, holding her hand while she slept, watching her breathe, counting each breath like diamonds. Celia woke at dawn. She knew immediately that this was it. The last day. Her body felt different, lighter, somehow, like it was already starting to let go. Miho was asleep in the chair, his head resting on the edge of her bed, his hand still holding hers. She studied his face, memorizing the lines around his eyes, the way his lips parted slightly in sleep, the vulnerability he never showed when awake. I love you, she thought. I love you, and I'm sorry I have to leave you. He woke as if he felt her gaze. His eyes opened, and for a moment he looked disoriented. Then he saw her awake and alert, and something like relief crossed his face. "Good morning," she whispered. "Good morning." He lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. "How do you feel?" Honest answer. "Always. Like I'm floating. Like I'm not quite here anymore." Miho's jaw clenched. "Dr. Han can give you more medication." "No. I want to be present. I want to remember today." "Celia." "Miho." She cupped his face with her free hand. "I'm dying today. We both know it. So let's not waste time pretending. Let's just be together. Okay." His eyes filled with tears he refused to let fall. "Okay." Jiho arrived at 8, brought by Sumi, who looked like she'd been crying. The boy climbed onto the bed carefully, settling into his usual spot against Celia's side. "Did you sleep okay?" Celia asked. "I had a nightmare. But then I remembered you said we were safe, and I felt better." "Good. That's good." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Jiho said, "Mama Sisi, are you dying today?" Miho made a choked sound. Celia's heart broke all over again. "Yes," she said gently. "I think so." "Does it hurt?" "A little. But Dr. Han gave me medicine that helps." "Are you scared?" "Not anymore. I used to be scared. But now I'm just grateful. I got to meet you. I got to be your mama. I got to love your appa. That's more than I thought I'd have." Jiho was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Will you watch me from heaven? Every single day. Will you be proud of me?" "I'm already proud of you." Celia's voice cracked. "You're the bravest, kindest, most wonderful boy I've ever met. And I'm so lucky I got to be your mama." Jiho started crying. Not sobbing, just quiet tears rolling down his cheeks. "I don't want you to go," he whispered. "I know, baby. I don't want to go either. But sometimes we don't get to choose. Sometimes life just happens. It's not fair. No, it's not fair at all." Miho stood abruptly and walked to the window, his back to them. Celia could see his shoulders shaking. "Appa." Jiho's voice was small. "Are you sad?" Miho took a moment before turning around. When he did, his face was composed, but his eyes were red. "Yes," he said simply. "I'm very sad. Because I love Mama Sisi very much. And I'm going to miss her every day for the rest of my life." "Me too. I know." Miho came back to the bed and sat on the edge. "But you know what? We're going to be okay. Both of us. Because Mama Sisi taught us how to love each other. And that doesn't go away just because she does." Celia reached for both their hands, connecting them. "Listen to me. Both of you. When I'm gone, you have to promise me something." "Anything," Miho said hoarsely. "Promise me you'll live. Not just survive. Actually live. Laugh. Be happy. Make memories. Don't spend your lives mourning me. Spend them celebrating that we had this time together." "I don't know if I can," Miho admitted. "Then try. For Jiho. For me. Try." The hours passed in a strange, suspended way. They talked. They were quiet. Jiho showed Celia his memory book, the one he'd been making all week, and she praised every drawing like it was a masterpiece. Miho read aloud from the Velveteen Rabbit, and Celia closed her eyes and listened to his voice and felt perfectly, impossibly content. Around 3 in the afternoon, the pain changed. Sharpened. Dr. Han increased her medication, and the world started to soften around the edges. "Miho," she murmured, "I need to tell you something." "What?" "Thank you. For the last 3 months. For giving me a family. For making me matter. You always mattered. Not like this. Not before you." She smiled, even though it hurt. "You saved me. Not from dying. From dying alone." Miho pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you. God, I love you so much. I love you too. Tell me what you'll do. After. I need to know you'll be okay." He took a shuddering breath. "I'll get out. The criminal life. All of it. I'll liquidate everything and start over. Something legitimate. Something Jiho can be proud of. I'll take him traveling. Show him the world. Make sure he remembers you every place we go. That's perfect. And I'll never forget you. Never love anyone else. You're it for me, Celia Brennan." "Miho." "No." His voice was fierce. "You don't get to tell me to move on. You're my wife. My only wife. That's not changing." Celia didn't have the energy to argue. And maybe she didn't want to. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." At sunset, she started slipping away. Jiho was curled against her side, half asleep. Miho was holding her hand, his thumb tracing patterns on her palm. "The light is pretty," Celia murmured, looking at the orange glow coming through the window. "It is. I'm ready." "I'm not." I know. I'm sorry. Her breathing was shallow now, labored, each breath seeming to take tremendous effort. Miho. Her voice was barely audible. Will you tell him? Every day? That I loved him. Every single day. And that I was happy. At the end. Because I was. I will. Good. She smiled. Or tried to. That's good. Jiho stirred. Mama Cece? I'm here, baby. Don't go. I love you. So much. Forever and ever. Love you too, he whispered. Celia looked at Miho one last time. Thank you, she breathed. For everything. Thank you. Her eyes closed. Her breathing stopped. And Celia Brennan, pediatric nurse, terminal cancer patient, mother to a boy she'd known for only 3 months, died in a hospital room, surrounded by the family she never thought she'd have. Miho didn't move. Couldn't move. He just sat there, holding her still warm hand, feeling the absence of her pulse, trying to understand that she was gone. Jiho whispered, Mama Cece? Then louder, Mama Cece? Then he screamed. The sound tore through Miho like a bullet. He pulled his son into his arms, holding him while the boy sobbed and screamed, and tried to climb back onto the bed to shake Celia awake. She's gone, Miho heard himself say. She's gone, son. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Dr. Han appeared. Nurses. Quiet efficiency as they prepared her body. Miho refused to leave. Refused to let go of her hand even as they asked him to. Eventually, they just worked around him. It was Jiho who finally broke through. Appa, he hiccuped. We have to go? We have to. We have to do what she said. We have to live. Miho looked at his 6-year-old son, this impossibly strong, impossibly brave child, and realized Celia had given them one last gift, the ability to survive this. Okay, he whispered. Okay, we'll live. He kissed Celia's forehead one last time. Goodbye, my love, he murmured. Thank you for teaching me what it means to be human. Then he lifted Jiho and walked out of the room. The funeral was 3 days later. Small. Private. Just the people who'd known and loved her. They buried her in a cemetery overlooking the ocean they'd seen together in Busan. The ocean she'd told him was her favorite thing about Korea. Miho stood at the graveside and felt like he was buried with her. 8 months later, the house by the sea wasn't what Celia had imagined, because she'd never actually imagined it. They'd only talked about it once, in passing, during one of their late-night conversations. If I could live anywhere, she'd said, it would be by the ocean. A simple house. Nothing fancy. Just peaceful. Miho had built it anyway. Not simple. Not really. But peaceful. 3 stories of glass and wood perched on a cliff overlooking the East Sea. With a garden that Jiho helped plant. With a studio for art. With a library full of children's books. And in the garden, a statue. A woman reading to a child. Bronze. Beautiful. Underneath, a plaque. Celia Brennan, beloved wife and mother who taught us that love doesn't end when life does. This is where Miho came every morning. To sit on the bench beneath the statue. To drink his coffee and watch the sun rise over the water. To talk to her. Jiho's doing well, he said this particular morning. He's in 2nd grade now. Top of his class in art. He drew a picture yesterday of the 3 of us at the aquarium. Asked me if I thought you could see it from heaven. I told him yes. A breeze ruffled his hair. Miho smiled. I know you'd say there's no proof of heaven. But let me have this. He took a sip of coffee. The foundation officially opens next week. Celia's light. I know. You'd say it's too sentimental. But Jiho picked the name, and I couldn't say no. We've already helped 12 families escape organized crime. Given them new identities, housing, education for their kids. Dr. Han is on the board. Kwan handles security. Even Sangwoo got on board after we showed him the numbers. Another pause. I liquidated everything. Just like I promised. We're completely legitimate now. I'm boring. A philanthropist. A single father. The most dangerous thing I do is aggressive tax deductions. He laughed, and it only hurt a little. You'd be proud of me, I think. Or maybe you'd make fun of me for being so dramatic about everything. Probably both. A small voice from the house. Appa, breakfast is ready. Miho stood. I have to go, but I'll be back tomorrow. I'm always back tomorrow. He touched the statue's hand, the one holding the bronze book, and headed back to the house. Inside, Jiho had set the table. He did that now. Took pride in small responsibilities. In being helpful. I made eggs, he announced. And I only burned them a little. Perfect. Miho ruffled his hair. Mama Cece would be proud. Jiho beamed. Then, carefully, Appa, can we visit her grave this weekend? I want to show her my report card. Of course we can. They ate breakfast together. Then Jiho ran upstairs to finish getting ready for school, and Miho stood at the window looking out at the ocean. The grief was still there, would always be there, a permanent weight in his chest that he'd learned to carry. But so was the love, the gratitude, the knowledge that he'd been changed by knowing her. His phone buzzed. Dr. Han, the charity dinner is confirmed for next month. 15 families have signed up for the program. Good. Send me the details. Miho, how are you? Really? Miho considered. I'm living. Like she asked me to. Some days are better than others. But I'm living. She'd be glad to hear that. Yeah, she would. After he hung up, Miho noticed something on the kitchen counter. A drawing. New. Jiho must have made it this morning. It showed 3 figures. A man, a boy, and floating above them, in clouds with wings, a woman with auburn hair. Underneath, in Jiho's careful handwriting, our family. Appa plus me plus Mama Cece watching us. Miho picked up the drawing with shaking hands. I'm watching you too, he whispered to the figure in the clouds. Every day? And I'm trying to be the man you thought I could be. Saturday arrived with clear skies. Miho and Jiho drove to the cemetery together, a weekly ritual that had become sacred. They brought flowers, chrysanthemums, because those had been in the garden the day she died, and somehow that felt right. Jiho ran ahead to the grave, his backpack bouncing. Hi, Mama Cece. His voice carried across the quiet cemetery. I brought my report card. All A's. Well, except for math, but I'm working on it. Miho walked up slowly, watching his son arrange the flowers just so. The boy had developed a specific ritual. Flowers in the vase, then sitting cross-legged in front of the headstone, then talking for exactly 5 minutes about his week. Today was no different. And then Tommy said his mom makes the best kimchi, but I said my mom, my first mom, makes the best kimchi, and I think you would have liked her, Mama Cece. Appa says you would have been friends. Miho sat on the bench nearby, listening. And Appa says we're going to take a trip soon. To America. To meet your mom, my grandma. I'm excited but also nervous. Do you think she'll like me? Appa says of course she will, but what if? The 5 minutes ended. Jiho stood, brushed grass off his pants, and looked at his father. Appa, do you think she's happy? In heaven? Miho considered the question seriously. I think she's at peace. And I think she's happy we're living good lives. That's what mattered to her. Do you still miss her? Every single day. Me too. Jiho came and sat beside him on the bench. But it doesn't hurt as much now. Is that okay? That's exactly okay. That means you're healing. That's what she wanted. They sat in comfortable silence, father and son, looking at the grave of the woman who'd changed both their lives. Then Jiho said, Appa, can I tell you a secret? Always. Sometimes when I'm scared or sad, I pretend Mama Cece is there. Like, really there. And I talk to her. And even though I know she's not really there, it makes me feel better. Is that weird? Miho's throat closed. No. I do the same thing. Really. Every morning. In the garden. Jiho digested this. Then, that's good. That means we both still love her. We do. We always will. As they walked back to the car, Jiho asked one more question. Appa, when I grow up and have kids, will you tell them about Mama Cece? Every story I know. Promise. Promise. Jiho took his hand, and they walked together toward the car, toward home, toward the life that Celia had given them the gift of living. Behind them, the ocean breeze ruffled through the trees, carrying the scent of chrysanthemums. And somewhere, somehow, Celia Brennan smiled. Because her family was going to be okay. That was all she'd ever wanted. 2 years after Celia's death, Jiho stands at a podium at the Celia's Light Foundation Gala. He's 8 years old, confident, healthy, loved. My mama, he says in English, reading from cards Miho helped him prepare, wasn't my mama for very long. Only 3 months. But she changed my whole life. The audience is silent. Hundreds of people, all there because of Celia's legacy. She taught me that family isn't about time. It's about love. And she loved me so much that even though she's gone, I still feel it every single day. Miho sits in the front row, tears streaming openly down his face. So tonight, we're helping other kids like me. Kids who need someone to love them, someone to see them, someone to tell them they matter. Jiho looks directly at his father. Because that's what Mama Cece did. She made people matter. Celia Brennan died at age 28 from pancreatic cancer. In her 3 months with the Kang family, she saved a child from trauma, reformed a criminal, and left a legacy that has helped over 300 families escape organized crime. Love doesn't end when life does. It transforms into something eternal.